I unlocked my grandson's phone to check the time and saw the group chat notification pop up on the screen. Tyler had left his phone on my kitchen counter when he went to the bathroom, and the screen was still lit. I wasn't trying to snoop. I just needed to know if it was too late to start making dinner or if we still had time before the restaurant reservation. But then I saw the name of the group chat. Operation Inheritance. That's what it said at the top. 3 members, Rachel, Tyler, Madison. My finger hovered over the screen, ready to close it to respect his privacy. But that name, Operation Inheritance, what could that possibly mean? And then I saw my own name in the preview of the latest message. From Rachel, sent just 2 minutes ago. Just got off the phone with Grandma Nancy. God, she talks forever. Same story about her trip to Florida 3 times. I wanted to scream. But keep it up, guys. $2 million is worth pretending to care. My hand started shaking. I told myself I was misunderstanding, that there was context I was missing. But I couldn't stop myself from clicking on the chat, from scrolling up through the messages, from reading 3 years of conversations about me. Your turn to visit this weekend. I did last weekend, and I'm exhausted. Can someone else do the Sunday call? I literally can't listen to one more story about her bridge club. Just smile and nod. We're so close to the finish line. Did anyone actually confirm she hasn't changed the will? Should we be worried about her spending too much on that cruise? That's our money she's wasting. $800K each, guys. Keep your eyes on the prize. Message after message after message. 3 years of coordination. 3 years of taking turns enduring me. 3 years of treating me like a job, an assignment, an obstacle between them and money. My name is Nancy. I'm 73 years old, and I was about to discover that my grandchildren had been running a 3-year con to secure their place in my will. But in that moment, standing in my kitchen with Tyler's phone in my shaking hands, I didn't know yet the full extent of their betrayal. I was still processing, still hoping there was an explanation, still desperately wanting to believe that my grandchildren loved me. Let me take you back to the beginning, because you need to understand just how alone I was before this all started. My husband Harold died 11 years ago. Massive heart attack at 68, gone before the ambulance even arrived. One minute we were watching Jeopardy, arguing about an answer like we'd done for 43 years of marriage, and the next minute he was clutching his chest and collapsing. I held his hand while the paramedics worked on him, but I knew. I could see it in their faces. He was already gone. Harold and I had 1 child, our son David. David married young, had 3 children, Rachel, Tyler, and Madison, and then proceeded to be a largely absent father because his career in pharmaceutical sales took him all over the country. His wife Christine did most of the parenting, and she did it well. The kids were polite, well-educated, successful in their own ways. But after Christine died in a car accident when the youngest, Madison, was 15, David fell apart. He started drinking, lost his job. The kids essentially raised themselves through high school and college. I tried to be there for them. I really did. But David made it difficult. He resented that I'd been close with Christine, blamed me somehow for not preventing the accident even though I was 3 states away when it happened. He moved the family to California when Madison graduated high school, putting 3,000 miles between us. After that, I maybe saw my grandchildren once every 2 or 3 years. Brief, awkward visits where they'd stay for a day or 2. Clearly uncomfortable, eager to leave. David died 6 years ago. Liver failure from the drinking. He was only 54. I flew out for the funeral and tried to connect with my grandchildren, but they were distant, grieving, and I was just the grandmother they barely knew. Rachel was 29 then, already a lawyer. Tyler was 26, working in tech. Madison was 23, in graduate school. They were adults living adult lives, and I was a stranger who happened to share their DNA. After David's funeral, I didn't hear from them. Not on my birthday, not on Christmas, not even a card or a phone call. It was like I didn't exist. I understood, in a way. I was connected to painful memories. Their father's death, their mother's death, a childhood that hadn't been easy. I represented loss, so I didn't push. I sent cards on their birthdays, checks for Christmas, and tried not to feel hurt when they never acknowledged them. Harold had been smart with money. We both worked, lived modestly, invested wisely. He'd had a good life insurance policy. Between that, our retirement savings, the sale of our house when I downsized, and smart investments over the years, I was comfortable. More than comfortable. My financial advisor estimated my total estate at approximately $2.4 million. I owned my small condo outright, had enough income from investments and Social Security to live well, and had more money than I'd ever need for my remaining years. I'd made a will years ago, back when Harold was alive. Standard stuff. Everything to Harold, and if he predeceased me, everything split equally among David and his children. After David died, I'd updated it to leave everything to Rachel, Tyler, and Madison in equal shares. They were my only family, my only descendants. Where else would it go? I'd mentioned this to David's old business partner, George, at David's funeral. George had stayed in touch with me over the years, checking in every few months, making sure I was okay. He was a kind man, lonely himself after his own wife passed. We'd have lunch occasionally when he was in town. I updated my will. I'd told George over coffee after the funeral service. Everything goes to the kids now. It's about $2 million, give or take. I hope it helps them. I know David didn't leave them much. George had looked uncomfortable. Nancy, that's generous. But, well, just be careful. Money can bring out the worst in people sometimes. I'd brushed off his concern. They're good kids. They won't even think about it. I'm just being responsible, making sure everything's in order. What I didn't know was that George had mentioned my comment to Rachel in passing. Just casual conversation, probably trying to make small talk at the funeral reception. Your grandmother was telling me she updated her will. She's making sure you kids are taken care of. He'd meant well. He was trying to reassure her that despite David's death, despite the mess he'd left, their grandmother had their backs. But that innocent comment changed everything. 2 weeks after David's funeral, my phone rang. It was Rachel. Hi, Grandma Nancy. It's Rachel. I just wanted to check in and see how you're doing. I was so surprised I almost dropped the phone. Rachel hadn't called me in years. Oh, Rachel, sweetheart, how wonderful to hear from you. I'm doing all right. How are you holding up? It's been hard, but we're managing. I feel terrible that we've been out of touch for so long. Life just gets so busy, you know? Of course, dear. I understand. I was thinking maybe Tyler, Madison, and I could come visit you next month. We'd love to spend some real time with you. Get to know you better. We've missed so much time. My heart swelled. Finally, my grandchildren wanted a relationship with me. That would be wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. They came. All 3 of them. Spent a whole weekend at my condo. Brought flowers and wine and took me out to dinner. They asked about my life, about Harold, about what I did with my time. They laughed at my stories. They seemed genuinely interested. Rachel even hugged me when they left and said, "Let's not let so much time pass again. Okay, Grandma?" After that, the calls started coming regularly. Rachel would call every Sunday evening. Tyler would text me articles he thought I'd find interesting. Madison would FaceTime to show me her apartment, her cat, her new haircut. They started visiting once a month, sometimes twice. They'd take me to brunch, to the botanical gardens, to the movies. They'd help me with things around the condo, fixing a leaky faucet, programming my new TV remote, organizing my photos. I was so happy, so grateful. For the first time since Harold died, I didn't feel alone. My grandchildren loved me. They wanted me in their lives. The grief of losing David had somehow brought us together. I should have known it was too good to be true. The visits continued for 3 years. 3 years of Sunday phone calls and monthly visits and birthday celebrations and holidays together. They made such an effort. Tyler flew in from Seattle every 6 weeks. Madison drove up from San Diego twice a month. Rachel lived closest, in the same city, and she came bi-weekly. But there were little things I started noticing. Small things that didn't quite add up. Like how Rachel would always steer conversations toward my finances. How are your investments doing, Grandma? Are you happy with your financial advisor? Do you feel secure? Or how Tyler would mention estate planning. Have you thought about setting up a trust, Grandma? It could save on taxes. I could put you in touch with someone. Or how Madison would ask about my will. Do you have everything organized, Grandma? All your legal documents? We'd want to make sure your wishes are respected if anything ever happened. They were always together when they visited. Always all three of them, never just one. At first, I thought this was lovely, that they were making an effort to see me as a unit, to share the responsibility of caring for their elderly grandmother. But it started to feel coordinated, planned, like they had meetings about me. And there was something in how they acted, a performance quality. The smiles were always a bit too bright, the laughter a bit too loud, the affection a bit too deliberate, like they were following a script. But I pushed these thoughts away. I was being paranoid, ungrateful. My grandchildren loved me. They were busy people making time for me. I should be thankful, not suspicious. Then came my 73rd birthday party. Rachel had insisted on throwing me a party at her house. A real celebration, Grandma. You deserve it. She'd invited about 20 people, some of my old friends, her siblings, a few of her own friends who I'd met over the years. It was a lovely party. Rachel had outdone herself with decorations and food. There was a beautiful cake with Happy Birthday Nancy in elegant script. Everyone sang. I blew out the candles and made a wish that I'd have many more years with my loving grandchildren. Halfway through the party, I went looking for the bathroom. Rachel's house was large, a beautiful craftsman she bought 2 years ago with what she said was a lucky break on a foreclosure sale. The house had cost $700,000. I remember thinking at the time that law must pay very well these days. I knew the guest bathroom was occupied. Someone had been in there for a while, so I headed upstairs to use the master bathroom. The music from the party faded as I climbed the stairs, my arthritic knee complaining with each step. As I approached the top of the stairs, I heard voices coming from Rachel's home office. The door was ajar, just a crack, but sound carries in these old houses. I recognized Tyler's voice immediately. He had his father's voice, deep and a little gravelly. Just smile and pretend you care, he was saying. I froze, my hand on the railing. She's loaded and she's getting old. This can't go on much longer. I mean, she's 73. How many more years can she realistically have? 5, 10 at most. My heart stopped. Actually stopped for a beat. I should have turned around. Should have walked back down the stairs. But I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't do anything but stand there and listen. I know. Rachel's voice responded, and hearing my granddaughter's voice was somehow worse than Tyler's. Rachel, my first grandchild. The little girl I'd held in the hospital when she was born. But we have to keep it up. We've invested 3 years into this. 3 years of weekly visits and phone calls and pretending to care about her boring stories. If any of us slacks off now, if she senses something's wrong, she might change the will. We've come this far. We can't blow it now. Has anyone actually seen the will? That was Madison's voice. Younger, more uncertain. Like, are we absolutely sure we're in it? What if we're doing all this for nothing? George told me directly after Dad's funeral, Rachel said. I could hear papers rustling, like she was sorting through something on her desk. He said Grandma updated her will and everything split 3 ways between us. 2.4 million total. That's 800,000 each. That's not nothing, Madison. That's life-changing money. I guess, Madison said. But God, Tyler's right. How much longer? She seems pretty healthy for her age. She could live to 90. Don't even say that, Tyler groaned. I cannot do this for another 17 years. Last week she called me and talked for 2 hours. 2 hours. About her neighbor's cat. A cat. I was literally banging my head against my desk. And then she told me the same story about her trip to Florida 3 times in one conversation. 3 times. The same story. They all laughed. My grandchildren, standing in a beautiful house at a party they'd thrown for me, laughing about how boring I was, how much of a burden I was, how they were suffering through their interactions with me. At least you just get phone calls, Madison said. Rachel and I have to do in-person visits. Do you know how hard it is to smile and nod while she shows you the same photo albums over and over? Or talks about people who died 30 years ago. or explains how to make pot roast for the millionth time. The pot roast, Rachel groaned. Oh my God, the pot roast story. If I hear one more time about how Harold loved her pot roast and the secret was browning the meat first, I will lose my mind. More laughter. I gripped the railing so hard my knuckles turned white. Harold. They were mocking stories about Harold. My husband. The love of my life. Just think about the payout, Rachel said, her voice taking on that businesslike tone she used at her law firm. I'd heard it before and been proud of how professional she sounded. Now it just sounded cold. Calculating. 2.4 million split 3 ways. That's 800,000 each. Tyler, you can finally buy that house you want in Seattle. The one with the view of the Sound. Madison, you can pay off your student loans and have enough left over to travel. Maybe start that consulting business you're always talking about. I can make partner without worrying about money. Maybe even start thinking about buying a bigger place. When do you think she'll die? Madison asked. Just like that. Casually. Like she was asking when a package would arrive. I mean, honestly. She seems pretty healthy. I don't know, Rachel said. I heard a chair creak, like someone was leaning back. A few years maybe? She's 73. The average life expectancy is what, 80? So maybe 7 years? But honestly, the older she gets, the more likely she is to need serious care. Nursing homes are like 8 to 10,000 a month. If she lives too long and needs care, that'll eat up the estate fast. We need to make sure we're locked in legally before she starts spending down on her own care. Should we suggest she gift us some money now? Tyler asked. You know, for tax purposes or estate planning or whatever. Rachel, you're the lawyer. Is there a way to structure it so she gives us money while she's alive? Too obvious, Rachel said firmly. If we suddenly start asking for money after 3 years of just visiting, she'll know something's up. Old people aren't stupid. Well, they are, but not about money. She'd get suspicious. No, we just maintain the status quo. Weekly visits for me, monthly for you too, regular phone calls from everyone. We play the loving grandchildren who are so grateful to have her in our lives. When she dies, we inherit, sell the condo, liquidate everything, split it 3 ways. Easy. Clean. I guess I can handle her boring stories, if it means 800 grand, Tyler said. It's just, God, some days it's really hard to pretend. Like last month when she wanted me to come over to help her set up her new TV remote. I had plans. I was supposed to meet Sarah for drinks, but I had to cancel and spend 2 hours showing an old woman how to use a remote control. For the 3rd time, because she keeps forgetting. The sacrifice is worth it, Rachel said. Keep your eyes on the prize. She's not going to live forever. Every visit, every phone call, every boring story you endure is an investment. We're investing in our future, in $800,000 each. What if one of us can't make it sometime? Madison asked. Like, what if I have a real conflict? Then you suck it up and go anyway, Rachel snapped. This only works if we're consistent. If suddenly one of us stops showing up, stops calling, she'll notice. She'll wonder what changed. And then she might start thinking about why we're really here. We cannot give her any reason to doubt us. We are loving grandchildren who adore her and want to spend time with her. That's the story. That's what she has to believe. Fine, Madison said. I just wish it didn't take so long. 3 years and counting. I'm so tired of pretending. We all are, Rachel said. But we're in too deep to quit now. Just keep going. It'll be worth it when she's gone and we're $800,000 richer. I stood on those stairs for what felt like hours, but was probably only 2 or 3 minutes. My whole body had gone cold despite the warm evening. My heart was pounding so hard I could see my blouse moving with each beat. My hands were trembling on the railing. I felt dizzy, nauseous, like the floor was tilting under my feet. These people, these grandchildren I'd been so grateful for, so happy to have in my life, weren't just tolerating me. They were actively suffering through their time with me. Every visit was torture. Every phone call was an endurance test. Every "I love you, Grandma" was a lie told in service of $800,000. I wanted to burst through that door. Wanted to confront them right there. Wanted to see their faces when they realized I'd heard everything. But my legs wouldn't move. My voice wouldn't come. I just stood there, frozen, while they continued to discuss me like I was a stock investment, a piece of property, a problem to be managed until it resolved itself through my death. Finally, I heard movement in the office. We should get back to the party, Rachel said. People will notice we're gone, and we need to do the cake soon. Make sure you're all appropriately emotional when she blows out the candles. Loving grandchildren cherishing their grandmother's special day. I moved then quickly and quietly back down the stairs. My body was on autopilot, years of polite social conditioning taking over when my brain couldn't function. I slipped into the guest bathroom, the one that was now vacant, and locked the door. Sat on the closed toilet lid and stared at the wall. I needed to think, needed to process, needed to figure out what to do. But all I could think was that everything, absolutely everything about the last 3 years had been a lie. I walked back downstairs quietly, carefully. My hands were shaking. When I got to the bottom, I went straight to the guest bathroom, locked the door, and sat on the closed toilet lid. I thought I might throw up, thought I might pass out, thought I might die right there from the pain of this betrayal. Eventually, there was a knock. "Grandma, you okay in there?" Rachel's voice, filled with fake concern. I forced myself to stand, looked at my face in the mirror. Pale, shocked old. I splashed water on my face, took a deep breath, and opened the door. "I'm fine, dear. Just felt a little dizzy." "Oh no. Do you need to sit down? Can I get you some water?" I looked at her, really looked at her. This beautiful, successful woman who I'd been so proud of, who I'd loved unconditionally, who saw me as nothing but a bank account with a pulse. "I'm fine," I said again. "Actually, I think I should head home. I'm a bit tired, but we haven't cut the cake yet." Her disappointment seemed so real. What a good actress she was. "I know, I'm sorry. Can you save me a piece? I just need to rest." Tyler appeared, all concern. "Let me drive you home, Grandma." No. I'll call an Uber." "Don't be silly. He was already getting his keys." "I insist." So I let him drive me home. This grandson who found my stories boring, who saw me as an obstacle between him and a house purchase. He chatted pleasantly the whole way, asking if I'd had fun at the party, saying how much he'd enjoyed seeing me, reminding me that he'd call on Sunday like always. "Love you, Grandma," he said as he walked me to my door. "Love you too," I heard myself say. The lie tasted like ash. As soon as he left, I sat in my living room in the dark. Didn't turn on any lights. Just sat there, replaying every visit, every phone call, every moment over the past 3 years, seeing them all in this new, horrible light. The Sunday calls where Rachel would keep me talking for hours. I thought she was interested in my life. But no, she was enduring my boring stories for $800,000. The monthly visits where Tyler would help around the condo. I thought he was being a caring grandson. But no, he was maintaining his investment, making sure his payout stayed healthy and functional until it was time to collect. The holidays together, the birthdays, the Mother's Days, all of it fake, all of it performed, none of it real. I'd been so lonely, so starved for family, so desperate to believe that my grandchildren loved me that I'd missed every sign. Or maybe there hadn't been signs. Maybe they were just that good at pretending. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat up thinking about what to do. Part of me wanted to confront them, to tell them I knew, to see their faces when they realized their con was exposed. But another part of me, the part that was still reeling from the betrayal, knew that confrontation would give them a chance to explain, to spin, to manipulate further. They'd been so good at lying for 3 years. Why would they stop now? No, I needed to be smart about this. Strategic. They wanted my money. Fine. But they were going to learn a very expensive lesson about using people. The next morning, I called my attorney, Stuart. I'd used him for years, trusted him completely. "Stuart, I need to make some changes to my will. Major changes. Can you come to my home? I'd rather not discuss this in your office." He came that afternoon. I told him everything. What I'd overheard. What I wanted to do. His face grew grimmer as I talked. "Nancy, I'm so sorry. That's despicable. But are you sure about this? These are drastic changes. I've never been more sure of anything in my life. We spent 3 hours going over everything. My entire estate, the condo, the investments, the savings, the life insurance, everything. I explained exactly how I wanted things distributed, and Stuart took meticulous notes. This will take me about a week to draft properly, he said. Once it's ready, you'll need to come to my office to sign it with witnesses. That's fine. But Stuart, this is confidential. Attorney-client privilege. No one can know. Of course. Nancy, if you don't mind my asking, what are you going to do in the meantime? With your grandchildren? I smiled and it felt cold. I'm going to give them exactly what they've been giving me for 3 years. A performance. That Sunday, Rachel called at her regular time. Hi, Grandma. How are you feeling? You left the party so suddenly. Oh, I'm fine, dear. Just got a bit tired. You know how it is at my age. Well, you're not that old. You'll probably outlive all of us. The irony. Maybe so. How was the rest of the party? Great. Everyone missed you, though. We saved you some cake. Tyler's going to bring it by this week. How thoughtful. I kept my voice warm, grandmotherly. Let her think nothing had changed. I was thinking, maybe we could have dinner next week? All of us? That would be wonderful. I'll check with Tyler and Madison and we'll set something up. We chatted for 45 minutes. I told her the same stories I'd told before, the ones Tyler found so boring. She laughed in all the right places. Said, that's so interesting, Grandma, and I love hearing your stories, and we're so lucky to have you. When we hung up, I felt sick. But I'd done it. I'd performed just as well as she had. The dinner happened the following week at my favorite Italian restaurant. All 3 of them showed up, dressed nicely, bearing gifts. A new cardigan for me, a book I'd mentioned wanting, a photo frame with a picture of the 4 of us for my birthday party. We thought you'd like something to remember that day, Madison said, smiling. Oh, I'd remember that day all right. Just not the way she thought. We had a lovely dinner. They were attentive, engaging, funny. If I had known the truth, I would have thought it was a perfect evening with my loving grandchildren. But I didn't know the truth, so every laugh rang hollow. Every hug felt contaminated. Tyler asked about my finances again. How's that portfolio doing, Grandma? Market's been volatile. Oh, fine, I think. Stuart, my attorney, helps me manage all that. I don't understand most of it. You should understand it, Rachel said. It's your money. You should know what's happening with it. I trust Stuart. He's never steered me wrong. Still, it's important to be informed. Maybe we could meet with him together sometime. We could help you understand your assets better. They wanted to know the details. Wanted to confirm the size of their future payout. That's sweet, dear, but I'm comfortable with how things are. Rachel pushed a bit more, but backed off when I changed the subject. Good. They couldn't afford to seem too interested in the money. Had to maintain the illusion of caring grandchildren. The next week, Stuart called. Your new will is ready. Can you come by Thursday? I'll be there. I didn't tell my grandchildren I was going to the attorney's office. Thursday afternoon, I took an Uber downtown to Stuart's law firm. We went through the new will page by page. It was exactly what I'd asked for. Not a single dollar to Rachel, Tyler, or Madison. Instead, my estate was divided as follows. $1 million to the hospice organization that had cared for Harold in his final days. They've been so kind, so compassionate, so present during the worst week of my life. $500,000 split between 3 different charities. Cancer research, because Christine had died too young, addiction services, because David had needed help and never gotten it, and a local food bank, because I'd always believed in helping those in need. $300,000 to George, David's old business partner, who'd been a true friend to me for years without expecting anything in return, who checked on me because he cared, not because he wanted something. $200,000 to my neighbor, Mrs. Chun, who'd brought me soup when I was sick, who invited me for tea every week, who'd become a genuine friend. $100,000 to my cleaning lady, Rosa, who'd worked for me for 15 years, who always asked about my day, who remembered my birthday, who treated me like a person, not a paycheck. The remaining $300,000 covered funeral expenses, legal fees, and small bequests to a few other people who'd shown me genuine kindness over the years. Rachel, Tyler, and Madison would get nothing. Not a penny. Not a photo. Not a piece of furniture. Nothing. I signed the will with Stuart's paralegal and secretary as witnesses. Stuart put it in his safe. Nancy, what are you going to do now? Now. I smiled. Now I'm going to enjoy my life. And I'm going to let them keep performing. Let's see how good their acting really is. And that's exactly what I did. For the next 8 months, I played my role. I accepted their visits, answered their calls, went to their dinners, let them help around my condo, let them think they were maintaining their investment. But I also started really living. I took a cruise to Alaska, something I'd always wanted to do. When Rachel asked about it, I said it was affordable, that I'd found a good deal. Didn't mention I'd booked a luxury suite. I started going to theater matinees every week. Joined a book club at the library. Started having regular lunches with Mrs. Chun and her friends. Hired Rosa to come twice a week instead of once. Paid her double, and we'd have coffee and talk after she finished cleaning. I donated money to causes I cared about. Not huge amounts that would raise questions, but meaningful ones. 1,000 here, 5,000 there. To animal shelters and literacy programs and medical research. If I was going to die with money left, I wanted it to do some good while I was still alive to see it. I made one more visit to Stuart's office to add a codicil to the will. A letter to be read to my grandchildren after my death, explaining why they'd been disinherited. I spent a week writing it, choosing every word carefully. My phone rang constantly. Rachel every Sunday like clockwork. Tyler several times a week. Madison with her chatty FaceTime calls. Monthly visits continued. Birthday celebrations. Holiday plans. And every single time I performed, I was the sweet grandmother, grateful for their attention, oblivious to their true motives. I told my boring stories, asked about their lives, hugged them goodbye, but I also tested them sometimes. Little tests to see if there was any genuine affection buried under the performance. To see if maybe, just maybe, some small part of them actually cared about me as a person and not just as a bank account. The first test came about a month after I'd overheard their conversation. I mentioned casually during Sunday dinner that I was thinking about moving to a retirement community. I'd actually visited one, a nice place called Golden Years, just to make the story believable. They have wonderful programs, I said, watching Rachel's face carefully. Art classes, trips, social activities. There's a book club and a swimming pool. I'm getting lonely here by myself. I think it would be good for me to be around people my own age. Rachel's face flickered with panic before she recovered, that smooth lawyer mask sliding back into place. But I'd seen it. That split second of horror. Grandma, those places are so expensive, she said, her voice rising slightly. I looked into them for a client once. They're like 8, 10, sometimes $12,000 a month. You'd burn through your savings in no time. You can't afford that. I have quite a bit saved, I said mildly. I think I could manage it for a while. But why waste money like that when you're fine here? Tyler jumped in. He'd been looking at his phone, but suddenly he was very engaged in the conversation. You have this great condo. You know the neighborhood. You have friends here. Moving to one of those places, you'd be spending your money on something you don't even need. He'd almost said it. Almost said our money. I filed that away. Plus, those places can be depressing, Madison added. All those old people sitting around waiting to die. That's not you, Grandma. You're vibrant, active. You should stay here where you're happy. But I just said I'm lonely. Then we'll help you find ways to be more social here. Rachel said quickly, we could look into senior centers, or day programs, or volunteer opportunities. Things that won't cost tens of thousands of dollars. Things that are, affordable. Translation: don't spend our inheritance on yourself. Don't waste our money on something frivolous like your own happiness and companionship. I suppose you're right, I said, watching them all relax. It would be expensive. Exactly, Rachel said, reaching over to pat my hand. We just want what's best for you, Grandma. We don't want to see you make a financial mistake you'd regret. Test number 1 failed. They cared about the money, not my loneliness. A few weeks later, I tried test number 2. I told Tyler during one of his phone calls that I was thinking about getting a dog. Just for companionship, you know? Mrs. Chin has a little terrier and he's such good company for her. I was thinking about going to the shelter this weekend. Grandma, that's a huge responsibility at your age, Tyler said immediately. Dogs need walking, feeding, vet care. They're expensive. And what if something happens to you? What if you fall and can't take care of it? Or what if you get sick? Who would take care of the dog? I suppose Mrs. Chun or Rosa could help. It's just not a good idea. And honestly, dogs can be really expensive. Food, vet bills, grooming. That could cost you a couple $100s a month. Maybe hold off on that idea. Translation: don't create complications that might require expensive care or might delay the inheritance process. Don't spend money on something that brings you joy. You're probably right, I said. It was just a thought. I know you're lonely, Grandma, but a dog isn't the answer. Maybe try joining some clubs or something. Free clubs. Test number 2. Failed. The third test was more elaborate. I told Madison during one of her FaceTime calls that I wanted to take a trip to Italy. I'd been researching it, even had some brochures. It's something Harold and I always dreamed about, but never did. I want to see Rome, Florence, Venice, experience the art, the history, the food. I think I have enough saved to make it happen. It would cost quite a bit, maybe 15 or 20,000 with a nice tour package, but I think I deserve one big adventure before I'm too old to travel. Madison's face on the screen went pale. Grandma, that's such a long flight. Like 12, 13 hours? That's so tiring at your age. And international travel is risky. What if you got sick over there? Foreign hospitals, language barriers. The medical bills would be insane. Your insurance might not even cover you. I'd be on a tour. They handle everything. Those tour packages are scams, Grandma. They overcharge you and then nickel and dime you for everything. You'd come back having spent $30,000 or $40,000. And for what? To see some old buildings and eat pasta? You can get pasta at Olive Garden for like $15. I almost laughed at that. My dream trip reduced to Olive Garden. But it's always been a dream of mine. Maybe do something closer to home? Madison suggested quickly. Like a road trip up the coast? That would be way cheaper and less risky. Or maybe just stay home and watch travel documentaries. They have great ones on Netflix. You can see Italy without spending a fortune or risking your health. Translation: don't waste money on yourself. Don't do something that brings you joy if it costs our inheritance. Watch TV instead of living your dreams. I suppose that would be more practical, I said, watching her relax. Exactly. Practical. That's important at your age. You have to think practically about these things. Test number 3. Failed spectacularly. I did a few more tests over the following months. Each one confirmed what I already knew. I mentioned wanting to renovate my bathroom because the old tile was cracked and the fixtures were from 1985. Rachel suggested I just buy a bath mat to cover the cracks, said renovations were a waste of money at my age. I mentioned wanting to donate $10,000 to the hospice that had cared for Harold. Tyler talked me out of it, said I should keep my money for emergencies, that I could always donate in my will instead. I mentioned wanting to help Mrs. Chen's granddaughter with her college tuition, just a few $1,000s, because the girl was so bright and deserved a chance. Madison said I shouldn't enable other people's financial irresponsibility, that if Mrs. Chen couldn't afford to help her own granddaughter, that wasn't my problem. Every single test, they failed. Every single time, they prioritized protecting their future inheritance over my present happiness. They didn't want me to spend money on myself, help others, or do anything that might reduce the size of the estate they were waiting to claim. But you know what they never discouraged? Their own gifts to me. For my 74th birthday, they bought me an expensive new tablet. So you can FaceTime us more easily, Grandma. $800. For Christmas, they bought me a designer winter coat. You need to stay warm. $600. For Mother's Day, a diamond pendant necklace. You deserve beautiful things. $1,200. It took me a while to understand what they were doing. Every expensive gift they bought me was an investment. They were spending maybe $3,000 or $4,000 a year on me. And in return, they were maintaining their position in a $2.4 million will. That's a return on investment of about 60,000%. The best deal in the world. And the gifts served another purpose. They were proof. Evidence. Look how much we love Grandma. Look how generous we are. We buy her expensive presents. We must really care about her. If anyone ever questioned their devotion, they could point to those gifts. But they never gave me what I actually wanted. Their time given freely. Their attention offered genuinely. Their love provided unconditionally. The things that cost nothing but meant everything. Those they kept locked away, rationed out in calculated doses, always with an eye on the payout. Meanwhile, I made sure my real friends knew how much I appreciated them. I took Mrs. Chun and her husband to dinner once a month. I gave Rosa generous Christmas bonuses and bought her daughter school supplies. I sent George tickets to concerts and sporting events. These people, who had no expectation of inheritance, who just liked me as a person, became my real family. On my 74th birthday, Rachel threw another party. Same house, same decorations, same performance. As I sat there eating cake and listening to my grandchildren tell me how much they loved me, I felt nothing. No anger anymore. No hurt. Just a cold, clear certainty that I'd made the right choice. Tyler pulled me aside at one point. Grandma, I wanted to talk to you about something. Have you thought about long-term care insurance? Or maybe setting up a trust to protect your assets if you ever need assisted living? Oh, I don't think I need to worry about that yet. But it's smart to plan ahead. I could help you look into some options. Make sure your estate is protected. He meant, make sure there's still money left for us to inherit. That's sweet of you to worry. But Stuart handles all that for me. His smile tightened. Right. Stuart, does he know about your wishes for your estate? Like, have you talked to him recently about your will? Oh yes, Stuart and I meet regularly. Everything's all set up exactly how I want it. Tyler relaxed. He thought this meant his name was still in that will. Good. That's good. I just want to make sure you're taken care of. Don't worry, I said, patting his hand. Everything's exactly as it should be. The months passed. I turned 74, then 74 and a half. My grandchildren kept up their routine with impressive consistency. Sunday calls, monthly visits, birthday parties. They were in it for the long haul, these three. But I started noticing cracks in the performance. Small ones. Madison checked her phone more during visits, clearly bored. Tyler's smile didn't quite reach his eyes anymore. Rachel would sometimes snap at her siblings when they thought I couldn't hear, hissing about how it was their turn to call me. Their turn to visit. The strain of pretending to love someone for years was starting to show. Then I got sick. Not seriously at first, just a bad flu that left me weak and exhausted. I was in bed for 2 weeks, could barely get up to make myself tea, could barely keep food down. During that time, my grandchildren's true colors really showed. And so did everyone else's. Rachel called once, on day 3 of my illness. Hi, Grandma. I heard you're not feeling well. No, I'm quite sick actually, I said, my voice hoarse. I haven't been able to get out of bed much. Oh, that's terrible. Well, I'd love to come by, but I'm absolutely swamped at work. This case is killing me. Big trial coming up. You understand, right? Of course. I waited. Waited to see if she'd offer to send anything. Groceries. Soup. Medicine. Anything. Make sure you're drinking lots of fluids, she said. And get some rest. I'll check in on you in a few days. She didn't check in. Not in a few days, not at all. I was sick for 2 full weeks and Rachel called once. Tyler texted on day 5. Heard you're under the weather. Hope you feel better soon. Face with thermometer, then 3 hours later, another text sent you a DoorDash gift card. $50 so you can order some food. Take care. $50. He sent $50 so I could order food. But he didn't call to check on me. Didn't offer to come by. Didn't ask if I needed anything else. Just $50 and an emoji. Madison FaceTimed on day 7 when I looked my absolute worst. Greasy hair, pale skin, dark circles under my eyes. Oh, Grandma, you look terrible, were her first words. Not how are you feeling, but you look terrible. I've been very sick, I said weakly. Yeah, you look like it. Have you seen a doctor? Not yet. I've been too weak to drive. Well, you should probably go if you're not better soon. I have to run. I have a meeting in 10 minutes, but I wanted to check on you. Feel better, okay? The call lasted maybe 5 minutes. She spent most of it looking at something off camera, clearly distracted. When she hung up, I felt more alone than before she called. That was it. That was the sum total of my grandchildren's support during the worst illness I'd had in years. One phone call, one text with a gift card, and one brief FaceTime call where I was told I looked terrible. You know who showed up? Mrs. Chun. She came on day 2, when I hadn't answered her usual morning wave from across the courtyard. She knocked on my door, and when I didn't answer right away, she used the spare key I'd given her for emergencies. Found me in bed, feverish and weak. Nancy, oh no, you're so sick. She immediately went into action. Called her husband to bring over homemade soup. Made me tea. Fluffed my pillows. Put a cool cloth on my forehead. You should have called me. I didn't want to bother you, I whispered. Bother me? Nancy, we're friends. This is what friends do. She came back every day for 2 weeks. Brought soup, made tea, sat with me, made sure I was taking medicine, changed my sheets when I was too weak to do it. Her husband came too, bringing groceries, taking out my trash, checking that my heater was working properly. Rosa showed up on day 4, on her day off. She'd called to confirm our regular cleaning appointment, and I'd told her I was sick, that we should cancel. Instead, she came anyway. You're sick, you need help, she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. She cleaned my entire condo while I slept, changed my bedding, did my laundry, scrubbed my bathroom, organized my medicine, made me a pot of chicken soup from her grandmother's recipe. When I tried to pay her, she refused. You're sick. I'm not taking money from you when you're sick. That's not right. But Rosa, it's your day off. You're my friend, Nancy. Not just my job. My friend. Friends take care of each other. George called every single day. Sometimes twice a day. Long calls where he'd tell me stories to keep me entertained. Read me articles from the newspaper, make me laugh when I felt terrible. On day 9, he drove over with bags of groceries. I know Mrs. Chun has been bringing you soup, but I thought you might need some other things. Juice, crackers, medicine, whatever. He'd spent $200 on groceries for me. Refused to let me pay him back. Nancy, please, let me help. I want to help. These people who owed me nothing, who expected nothing, who had no financial stake in my life, took care of me. Really took care of me. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Because they cared. Because to them, I was a person worth caring about, not just a walking bank account. When I finally recovered enough to call Rachel for our regular Sunday call, she answered cheerfully. Grandma, you're better. We were so worried about you. We, plural, as if they'd all been deeply concerned. As if they'd done anything other than send a brief text and a gift card. Yes, I'm much better. Mrs. Chun and Rosa and George really took care of me. I don't know what I would have done without them. A pause. A long pause. Oh, that's nice that they were there. They're wonderful people. True friends. I'm very lucky to have them in my life. Another pause. Right. Well, I'm glad you're feeling better. Should we schedule a visit for next week? Back to business. Back to maintaining the schedule. Back to the performance. After that phone call, I went to Stuart's office. I want to make some changes to my will. Additional changes. He looked up from his desk, concerned. Are you sure you're well enough to be out, Nancy? I heard you were quite sick. I'm fine. And yes, I'm sure. I want to add specific bequests. An extra $50,000 to Mrs. Chun and her husband. An extra $50,000 to Rosa. An extra $50,000 to George. These people took care of me when I was sick. Real care. Not a gift card and a phone call. Real, genuine, human care. They deserve to be recognized for that. Stuart made the notes. Nancy, I have to say, I think you're doing the right thing. These people clearly care about you. They do. And my grandchildren clearly don't. This illness proved that beyond any doubt. I went home that day and looked around my condo. At the flowers Mrs. Chun had brought me. At the soup containers Rosa had left, each one labeled with reheating instructions. At the books George had dropped off, thinking I might want something new to read during my recovery. Evidence of real kindness, real caring, real love. And I thought about Rachel's one phone call, Tyler's $50 gift card, Madison's 5-minute FaceTime where she told me I looked terrible. And I felt nothing. No anger anymore. No hurt. Just a cold, clear certainty that I'd made the right choice. I turned 75 in February. Another party at Rachel's house. Bigger this time, more people. My grandchildren made speeches about how special I was, how much I meant to them, how grateful they were to have me in their lives. Everyone clapped. People dabbed at their eyes. I smiled and nodded and thanked them. And inside, I counted down. Because 2 weeks earlier, I'd received a diagnosis. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Caught late. Too advanced for treatment. The doctor gave me 6 months, maybe 8. I didn't tell anyone except Stuart. We need to make sure everything's in order, I said. It is, he assured me. Your will is ironclad. When the time comes, I'll execute it exactly as you've directed. And the letter? I'll read it to them personally. Good. I didn't change how I lived. Kept accepting calls and visits from my grandchildren. Kept seeing my real friends. Kept going to theater matinees and book club. The cancer progressed, but not as fast as predicted. I had 8 months, then 10, then a year. My grandchildren never noticed anything was wrong. I hid the symptoms well, and they weren't looking too closely anyway. They just saw that I was getting older, moving a bit slower, but still fundamentally healthy. Still alive, still keeping them from their inheritance. Finally, 18 months after the diagnosis, I took a turn. The cancer had spread everywhere. The pain became unbearable. I was hospitalized, then moved to hospice care. The same hospice that had cared for Harold all those years ago. My grandchildren visited in the hospital. All 3 of them, together as always. They held my hands and said they loved me and asked if I was comfortable. Their concern seemed so genuine. What good actors they were, right to the very end. Is there anything you need, Grandma? Rachel asked. Anything we can do? No, dear. Just knowing you're here is enough. We'll always be here for you, Tyler said. Lies. All lies. My last week was peaceful. The hospice nurses were wonderful. The same kindness they'd shown Harold. Mrs. Chun came every day, sat by my bed, held my hand. George visited and told me stories that made me laugh even through the pain. Rosa came and cried and told me I was like a mother to her. My grandchildren came too, separately now taking shifts, waiting. The death watch was on. I died on a Tuesday morning in April. I was 76 years old. Mrs. Chin was holding one hand and George the other. The nurse said I went peacefully, that my last word was Harold. I like to think he was waiting for me, that we're together now, watching what comes next. 3 days after my death, Stuart called a meeting at his office. He told my grandchildren it was for the reading of the will. They all showed up, dressed in black, faces appropriately solemn. But I imagine there was excitement underneath. 3 years of performance was finally going to pay off. $800,000 each. Freedom, security, reward. Stuart told me later what happened in a letter he sent to my favorite charity along with the donation from my estate. The 3 of them sat in his conference room. Rachel in the middle, Tyler and Madison on either side. Stuart opened the file containing my will. First, he said, I'm going to read you a letter from Nancy. She asked me to do this before we go over the will itself. A letter? Rachel's voice was uncertain. Yes. Stuart unfolded the pages I'd written. Pages I'd revised and perfected over 18 months. And he read, My dear Rachel, Tyler and Madison, if you're hearing this letter, it means I've passed away and you're waiting to learn what I've left you in my will. I'm sure you're expecting to inherit my estate, split 3 ways, just as George told Rachel at your father's funeral 6 years ago. I'm sure you've been counting on that money, planning for it, waiting for it, enduring me for it. Yes, I know. I've known for almost 2 years. I heard you at Rachel's house during my 73rd birthday party. I heard you say I was loaded, that I talked too much, that you were pretending to care until I died so you could collect your inheritance. I heard every word. For 18 months after that, I let you keep performing. I wanted to see how long you'd keep it up. How many fake phone calls, how many forced smiles, how many lies you'd tell. Turns out, quite a lot. You were very committed. I'll give you that. But here's the thing about performance. Eventually, the audience sees through it. Eventually, you forget there are real people watching, people with feelings and hearts and memories. You thought I was alone. A lonely old woman desperate for any scrap of attention. And you were right, I was lonely, but not desperate enough to be used. Because while you were pretending to love me, I found real love, real friendship, real people who cared about me without expecting anything in return. Mrs. Chin, who brought me soup when I was sick. Rosa, who treated me with kindness and respect. George, who checked on me just because he cared. These people never asked about my will, never wondered what they'd inherit. They just loved me. For me, not for what I could give them after I died. So, they're the ones receiving my estate. All $2.4 million of it. Split between them and several charities I believe in. People and organizations that showed me real kindness, real love, real care. You three, you get nothing. Not a dollar. Not a photo. Not a single thing. You spent 3 years pretending to love me for money. I spent 18 months teaching you a lesson. The lesson is this. Real relationships are built on love, not greed. Real family shows up when there's nothing to gain. Real caring doesn't come with a price tag. I hope the next time you think about using someone, you remember me. Remember that people are smarter than you think. That loneliness doesn't equal stupidity. That you can't fool everyone forever. I'm not sorry for disinheriting you. You earned that by treating me like an ATM instead of a human being. Like an inconvenience instead of your grandmother. Like something to endure instead of someone to love. I hope you learn from this. I hope you become better people. I hope you find genuine connections in your lives, built on truth instead of lies. But if you don't, well, that's not my problem anymore. I'll be with Harold now, and with David and Christine, and I'll be at peace knowing that my money went to people who actually deserved it. People who showed me real kindness, real love, real humanity. Goodbye, Rachel, Tyler, and Madison. I hope the money would have been worth it. Love, Grandma Nancy. Stuart said the silence after he finished reading was absolute, crushing. No one moved. No one spoke. He watched the realization dawn on their faces, the understanding that they'd been played, that I'd known all along. That 3 years of pretending had been for nothing. No, Rachel finally said. No, this isn't, she can't do this. She can and she did, Stuart said. The will is legal, witnessed, properly executed. Nancy was of sound mind when she made these changes. I can assure you of that. When? Tyler's voice cracked. When did she change it? 2 years ago. Right after your birthday party, Rachel. The one where Nancy overheard your conversation. Oh my God. Madison started crying. Oh my God. We can contest it, Rachel said, standing up. We're her grandchildren. We have rights. You can try to contest it, Stuart said calmly. But you'll lose. Nancy anticipated that. She documented everything. She even recorded some of your visits, your conversations about her finances, your obvious focus on her estate. She has evidence of your manipulation. If you contest this will, all of that becomes public record. Every law firm in this city will know you spent 3 years conning your grandmother. Good luck with your legal career after that, Rachel. Rachel sat back down. But Tyler's voice was small. But we spent 3 years. Pretending, Stuart finished. Yes, your grandmother was very aware of that. That's rather the point. The meeting ended shortly after. Stuart said Tyler left first, without a word. Madison was still crying. Rachel sat there for a long time, staring at the table, before finally leaving. They never contacted Stuart again. Never tried to contest the will. I imagine they were too ashamed. Or maybe they finally understood the magnitude of what they'd done. The estate was distributed as I directed. The hospice organization sent me a lovely letter, which Stuart read at my gravesite. They named a wing of their facility after Harold and me. The charities sent thank you notes describing what they'd do with the money. Save lives, feed families, help addicts. I was proud of that. Mrs. Chin cried when Stuart told her about her inheritance. She didn't have to do that, she kept saying. I loved her. I didn't need money to love her. That's exactly why she left it to you, Stuart explained. Rosie used part of her inheritance to start her own cleaning business, named it Nancy's Clean Sweep in my honor. George donated half of his inheritance to a scholarship fund for kids who'd lost parents, like my grandchildren had. He set it up in David and Christine's names. These people, who gained from my death, honored me with what they did with the money. My grandchildren, who'd have gained $800,000 each, got nothing and learned everything. I'm Nancy. I was 76 years old when I died, and my final act was teaching my grandchildren that you can't put a price on genuine love. That performance has a cost, that using people has consequences. I hope they learn that lesson. I really do. Not for my sake, but for theirs. Because a life built on manipulation is no life at all. And I hope wherever Harold is, he's proud of me for standing up for myself, for refusing to be used, for making sure my money went to people who actually cared about me, not people who saw me as a paycheck with a pulse. I died alone in a hospital room, they might say, but I didn't die alone. I died surrounded by people who loved me. Real people, real love, real connections. And my grandchildren? They're the ones who are truly alone now, living with the knowledge that they traded their grandmother's love for nothing, that they spent 3 years lying for money they'll never see, that they chose greed over genuine connection and lost everything. That's justice. That's poetry. That's exactly what they deserved. And somewhere I'd like to think Harold is smiling, because his wife didn't go quietly. She went out fighting, and she won.